mass exodus from the West Coast is hurting the housing market. Not really. Yes, there's been a net negative migration in the lovely state of California for the last 3 years. In 2019, 173,347 loss. In 2018, migration fell 8.8% from 190,122. 2020, 135,600 left the state of California. So today's agenda, I just want to talk about the migration patterns. I really think you got to look at it and break it down holistically and break it down to demographics, what's going on internally and externally, and then delve into what states are people moving to, and then transition to inflation. The Federal Reserve came out with some information. The Federal Reserve always puts a smile on my face. Just want to touch on a few things with inflation. So with that said, don't leave California. I did a video on it. I'm optimistic about California. Everyone says stick a fork in it and it's done. They're done. We got massive negative net migration. But when you look at it, the negative net migration, it has curtailed and it's less. And yes, I understand we lost a lot of bright minds and companies that left. You have a $100 million company, you can save $13 million. That 13% state income tax is brutal. And you can save that money and reinvest in your company and your people. Why would you want to stay in California? So when we talk about the migration, you have people, let's say on the west side, a family of 4, and the kids need a bigger room. They're doing their homeschooling. They want a bigger yard for the family because they're going to be spending more time at home, a pool, a gym, what have you. So you're seeing people, let's say on the west side, move internally to the Valley, Sherman Oaks, Studio City, Tarzana. You're seeing moves like that from a primary residence. And you're seeing people saying, hey, I want a second home. COVID has really put a lockdown on the state of California. California's taken a hardline stance compared to some other states and outside the country. And people are saying, hey, I want to get a second home in Florida. I want to get a second home in Mexico. I want to get a second home in Ibiza. So you're seeing those movements as well in second homes. I want to get a second home or a full-time residence in Palm Springs. I'm hearing that. So you have the internal migration as well as people leaving the state of California. So what's one way to look at this? Break down a city. I looked at Beverly Hills, for example. It's an area that I cover and keep an eye on it. So right now there's 252 active listings according to regional MLS, 59 active under contract right now to the tune of $278,326,888. Closed over the last 180 days, 223. Closed over the last 30 days, 56. So does that sound like a distressed housing market? Or some high net worth people moving here? Someone has a house in Montana and he wants a second home, tax break, buys in Beverly Hills. So that's almost $300 million of listings closed. So you're having lower socioeconomic middle class people are moving out, but you have high net worth people still moving in. You're seeing homes 2 million or more. Some deals to be had. There's some price cuts, but stuff is sitting a little while longer in the market, but it's moving. We all know under $1 million, that 250 to 800 sweet spot, you're seeing multi-offers, but credit has tightened up and there's some deals to be had. I know people that have fallen out and got some deals. So you are seeing those multi-offers in certain cities in California. So I just think you have to really break it down in these higher end cities, Beverly Hills, Manhattan Beach, Newport Beach. You're seeing some high end sales and things are moving. Things are sitting a little while longer in the luxury market. So to paint it with a broad stroke and look at it holistically and say it's just a mass exodus, I don't agree with that. You are seeing net negative migration. It has curtailed, but you're seeing lower socioeconomic people move to Texas and other states. But you are seeing higher net worth people, some money coming into the state as well. Like I said, I'm optimistic about this state. Sacramento's got to get their butt in gear in the next 2 to 3 years and realize how important entrepreneurship and creativity is. We've lost a lot of bright minds and some great companies have left California, but I'm optimistic. I know a lot of people that want to come back, but they're they're holding right now. And I know other people that wish they could come back, but now they're priced out. I'm happy I stayed. Like I said, we're invested horizontally, 90% outside the state of California, but I believe in deals are coming up and I'm seeing some stuff and I'm keeping an eye on it. And if something comes up, I'm going to pounce. So let's get it together, California. We all need to work together Jealousy is what ruins the world. There's enough for everyone out there. Let's get this state humming again. It's a great state. I believe in it. So with that said, where are people moving to outside of California? What are some hot areas where people are like, I'm done with California? What's the hottest area right now, according to the Washington Journal, Realtor.com? Coeur d'Alene. Anyone ever hear of Coeur d'Alene? Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. It's the hottest area in the United States right now, hottest area in the West Coast to move to. I've spent time in Boise. We're doing something down there. I've been spending a lot of time over the last year and a half, keep my eye on Idaho. And but Coeur d'Alene, I haven't been there yet, but I've been doing a lot of reading on it. I know people there. It's the area as far as beauty. I like it up there compared to other areas, and I'm going to go up there the next couple weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, and take a look. But you're talking mean price now, $476,900, increase of 47% over a year earlier. 1 million plus homes increasing a whopping 12 sales. So stuff that's coming up on market, they're getting over 30 offers. That's great for the real estate professionals there, over 30 offers per home. There's not much inventory. Inventory shrunk in the last year 71% to just 327 homes. And this has helped boost the number of high-end sales. If they can't get a lower-end sale, people are going to pony up. In the first few months of the year, 67 homes there is sold for $1 million or more. So that's good news for Coeur d'Alene. I think there's been some inflation from the internal data that I'm looking at. Of course, there in Nevada, and I've seen price cuts in Nevada across the board. I'm estimating, and I did a video on this, 25 to 36% in Idaho. And same, roughly 25 to 35% in Nevada from talking to realtors, and I spend time in Nevada as well. So, I keep an eye on that inflation, go in with a hard stance, don't be emotional. Those are interesting areas to look at, especially for investment property and rentals. I like Idaho. I'm not a fan of living there full time, but Coeur d'Alene is a beautiful place and hottest area. A lot of people in California, about 70%. The page views of Coeur d'Alene are listings in the state first quarter, 67% a year earlier. A lot of people from Seattle, Spokane, and Los Angeles are looking in Coeur d'Alene. And here's another thing. A vast number of West Coast refugees are fleeing California for Texas. So one real estate executive based in Dallas says that 70% up in refugees fleeing the West Coast. So that's interesting. Overall, home prices are much higher in the U.S. than they were last year. We all know that. In fact, we just learned that the Case-Shiller Home Price Index has risen 12% over a year ago. So that's good news. Home prices soared over 12% from a year ago, the biggest increase since February 2006, near the peak of the housing bubble, according to the index for February, which reflects the 3-month average of sales recorded in public records December, January, and February. So home sales are up. That's good news. Coeur d'Alene is hot. Austin, Texas is hot. Springfield, Ohio is hot. Billings, Montana is hot. Spokane, Washington is hot. Those are the hottest areas. But Idaho, from people in Los Angeles, they seem to have their eye on that, just like it was in Texas, 5 to 10 years ago. Texas, Austin, everyone wants to move to Texas, but now Boise, Idaho, and Idaho is the hot area to live in, and 3 of those in northwest area as well. So what's going on with inflation? How do we look at this? I just think this is interesting. The Federal Reserve says inflation is very low and there's nothing to be concerned about. There's nothing to be concerned about with the inflation. So what do we look at? Let's look at let's look at used car prices are escalating rapidly as well. In fact, the U.S. Used vehicle price index is up 52% from last year. That's used car prices in the U.S. have skyrocketed as a result of both the country's economic recovery and ongoing supply crunch. The index is up 6.8% in the first 15 days of April. As Bloomberg noted, the index is up an astonishing 52% from the same time last year. And the Federal Reserve says inflation is very low and there's nothing to worry about. So you look at used cars, what's going on? Prices are skyrocketing. Let's go to number 2, the price of gasoline as well. It's jumped over 9% since last month. It's up over 20% overall since The beginning of the pandemic, gas prices jumped over 9% in the last month, and they're expected not to slow down anytime soon. So gas prices are up 22.5% from the previous year. The biggest contributor to overall increase is goods and services. So, but the Federal Reserve says there's no inflation. Do you believe the Fed? I think the Federal Reserve should be forced to shop for lumber if they want to try convincing that there's no inflation. As we all know, and I did a video on this, according to Fortune, the price of lumber has shot up 232% from the start of the pandemic. Home builders, lumber prices going up. So we're looking at food prices are going up, and this is unavoidable. You just can't print to infinity and not have inflation. I'm very concerned about the inflation. I did a video on this full time. I'm not going to bore you with all that stuff, but the Federal Reserve said there's nothing to worry about right now. I do think there's some triggers. You just look at these 3 triggers. There's a lot more triggers of the inflation in the market. And what I'm really, really concerned about is the rental moratoriums. I'm concerned about the forbearances, because there's more forbearances than there was in 2008. Possible defaults. If everyone went into default right now, we'd have a major economic collapse. And when you default on your mortgage, the investors, the bank covers it for a couple months. Who's going to get hurt? Those investors who are invested in that mortgage are going to get hurt, but the bank covers that for a couple months. But there's some pain. We have people that have been in forbearance for over a year. There's a lot of people in forbearance. So I'm concerned about the forbearances and rental moratoriums. You put $4 million on the street, people are renting. You have the landlords, and I'm a landlord, so I know this is a hot button for me, but landlords have payments too, and some of these landlords are defaulting on their loans, and that's happening. It's being hidden. I'm seeing the internal data, so I'm worried about that, and I'm really, really concerned about inflation. And I hope they got some creative ideas there, Mr. Jerome Powell, but some of this stuff is very concerning. So overall, in sum, I'm optimistic about California. I have a love-hate relationship with this state. Net negative migration is down. We're seeing migration internally, and we're seeing migration externally. But people are moving here. People are buying property in the higher end segment, and stuff is moving. So we just got to keep an eye on these forbearances and rental moratoriums, because that could end some serious shock waves into the marketplace. Take care.